So this is Ruby. She is a 10-year-old girl with boundless energy, and as you can tell, she is no stranger to the stage. She loves to sing, dance, and act. But there's something else that you should know about Ruby. She was born with a condition called spastic quadriplegic cerebral palsy, and this creates difficulty with muscle control throughout her body, her left side being the most affected. Now, I want to make sure you understand the relationship between Ruby and cerebral palsy. CP is a condition that has been imposed upon her. It is not her. It does not determine who she is. It does not dictate her dreams or her potential, but it can create a disconnect at times between what she knows she can do inside of her and what her physical body is actually willing to let her do. And that all comes back to the brain. Anytime you see something or hear something or even think about doing something, your body sends electrical signals to your brain. And now, your brain then joins with your body into a conversation. But with cerebral palsy, those signals do not always get where they're supposed to go. In certain instances, the damage to the brain causes those signals to hit a roadblock. And they may just stop right there, or they may veer off in the wrong direction and cause a physical reaction that was never intended. And as you can imagine, that wreaks havoc on people in those situations. But this is where things get interesting. In certain situations, the brain can rewire itself and figure out how to get those signals where they need to go, even if the original pathway has been damaged. Now, this is where virtual reality comes into play. There's research that shows that spending time in the virtual space may actually boost the brain's ability to rewire itself. Now, I want to make sure we understand what we mean by virtual reality. Usually it involves putting on a headset like this with two screens in front of your eyes with a virtual environment. And if you've ever seen Ready Player One, you probably know what this is. You move your head left or right and the whole thing tracks perfectly. It makes you feel like you're in that place, and that's important because when the brain is in this virtual environment, it sometimes has trouble understanding what's real and what's not, and that creates a wonderful opportunity. I'll give you a simple example of what I'm talking about with Ruby. In Ruby's situation, her right side is the side that works well. Her left side's the most damaged, so she uses her right side a lot. In fact, her brain is programmed to do that. Anytime she needs to do something, the brain says, okay, Ruby, we're going to use the right side because we know that's the one that works well. And so the left side just gets worse. It becomes less reliable. Now, that's the reality of the situation. But imagine going into virtual reality where that entire scenario is switched. And now the right side is useless, and the left side is mandatory to get anything done in the virtual space. Now, spend enough time there, and the brain begins to realize that it actually can use the left side. In fact, it has to get anything done. And so it begins to create new pathways to get those signals where they need to go. It actually rewires itself to meet the challenges of this new virtual environment. Now, there's an intriguing study out of Hampton University in Virginia that seems to speak to this effect. An 8-year-old boy with cerebral palsy showed signs of neuroplasticity, and that is a big fancy word for his brain rewired itself after exposure to virtual reality therapy. And this was measured by MRI both before and after those therapy sessions. Now, the neuroplastic changes are attributed with increased mobility and use of the body in such a way that the child could begin to dress himself and feed himself and reach in ways that he could not do before the therapy. And this kind of research is happening all around the world. At USC, they're testing virtual reality for use with folks that have had post-traumatic stress syndrome. At the Women's and Children's Hospital in Australia, they're testing virtual reality for kids as a distraction when they have painful surgeries. And at Rutgers University, they're using virtual reality to test it on folks as a therapy for people that have experienced stroke. And this all does point back to Ruby. Right here in Oklahoma City, a project is underway to create virtual reality therapy for children with cerebral palsy, and Ruby will be one of the very first kids to use this cutting-edge equipment. And I think at this point, it's probably good for you to meet her. She's here in the audience. She's been here the whole time. Ruby, can you raise your hand real high? Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ruby, and Ruby is getting ready to change the world. Thank you very much. Thanks.